Meet The Fockers is a comedy film empire directed by Jay Roach across a trilogy of films that pits Robert De Niro and Ben Stiller together as opposing comedic foils that follows a simple linear rom-com narrative. The reason the trilogy is colloquially known as the Meet The Fockers franchise, despite being the second entry in the family, is because it grossed a magnanimous $522 million at the box office, making it the 26th most successful comedy film of all time, and goes all the way up to 6th if you spontaneously decide to remove every animated film for whatever reason. Put this against a neighbouring original title, Meet the Parents, that grossed only a meagre $330 million. With an all-star cast of actors, it's easy to understand why such a film could be successful within the orthodox contrived structure of Hollywood comedy films. On the other hand, I've never really had positive memories to share upon the Meet the Fockers franchise. However, today I'll be going through the entire trilogy from watching Owen Wilson's nose parallel my sanity as they both gradually go from left to right on the scale from Zoolander to Eraserhead until they're as poorly established as my understanding is why Ben Stiller is a household name. The goal of any successful trilogy aims to accomplish the main objectives of progressing the characters without falling victims to fandorization, introducing new elements within the succeeding entry to make it as consistent as warranted as a Hollywood blockbuster could possibly be, without attempting to rewrite or reimagine any of the previous film in the franchise, but most importantly, to understand the purpose of the original films by building on their core themes, improving them, and making them feel like a natural evolution from one film to the next, and only by doing this can drastic risks be taken into account to its conventional formula. Sounds completely arbitrary? Well, it's more of a criteria than an Icing's Creed. Every rule produced will immediately draw exception or get moth to flames. Like the Nolan Batman trilogy, whose second entry is where a film that explores literary themes of hero versus villain, juxtaposed with a stance of order and anarchy composed with the far weaker entries in the franchise, of an underwhelming superhero action movie, and The Dark Knight Rises that contained an antagonist so enveloped in darkness who was falling down into a susurration of Uncle Ben and Aunt Jemima. And the lost remnants of Owen Wilson's nose.
For you.
Unlike its modest IMDb rating of a 7.0 out of 10, I sadly cannot reciprocate that sign of praise upon this film. It stars Ben Stiller as a titular protagonist Gaylord Focker, a Jewish nurse whose objective in the film is to marry his girlfriend Pam Burns, but is swiftly interrupted by a wedding invitation to Pam's sisters Debbie at their parents' house on Long Island. So Gaylord decides to know and impress Pam's family and propose in front of them. However, Gaylord Focker is an anxiety-ridden, passive person whose complicity towards others' irrational contempt of him controls the entire narrative moving forward.
Hi, you lost my bag, and there's a 2-carat diamond ring inside it.
I didn't lose your anything, sir. We'll put your local address on this form, and we'll ship it when it surfaces.
And what if it doesn't? Am I supposed to spend the entire weekend with just the clothes on my back?
Wow!
Upon watching this film, you quickly discover that this film is about Gaylord Focker attempt to adapt to a situation where he perceived everyone as against him, and losing this weird recurring metaphor of the behaviour of cats versus dogs that poorly foreshadows a key moment of tension later in the film.
Greg, how come you don't like cats?
I don't not like cats. I just prefer dogs.
Yes, and here is where we're introduced to Robert De Niro's character, Jack Burns, whose role was to be the authoritative, moral, and social antithesis of Ben Stiller's character. The director of the film, Jay Roach, claimed the following about the film when asked about his direction and approach to comedic films because of how comedy has changed since the last project, Austin Powers. But I was trying to have it in more of a kind of 40s farce kind of way, the opportunity to create realistic characters, but to heighten comedic situations and predicaments a bit, so that they're still very funny as some very broad humour, but you would connect to the characters and completely identify with Ben Stiller's anxiety, not about only meeting Robert De Niro's character and all, but the kind of characters that come with him. You see Ben pre-visualize disaster and by avoiding it, sort of perpetrate it. For me, it became completely psychologically driven. That, I hope, is a kind of nice mixture of the old-fashioned approach and the newer approach. In theory, this works under the pretext of Gaylord Focker being a well-executed and well-written character. However,
Did I say it? Did I say it?
I don't think he is.
Take that!
The K.M. Wayland book, Creating Character Arcs, talks about what I believe Ben Stiller's character, Gaylord Focker, to fall under, the flat character arc. The flat character arc, when performed well, will give the audience the illusion that the character doesn't really change. But what's happening is the character has core fundamentals that they stick to that advance the narrative by challenging the status quo for all the other characters.
You tried to milk him, didn't you, you sick son of a bitch?
Fucker.
The unfortunate issue with Meet the Parents, however, is that no character is likable whatsoever. Even Ben Stiller's character relies on manipulating the entirety of the Burns family so his actions don't become revealed. Oh yeah, talking about broken characters, or broken things that can't be fixed. Owen Wilson is in this movie, and he might just be the worst character out of all featured. His entire character orbits around the idea of him being Pan's last partner, who also happens to be a day-trading carpenter, who sandblasts a piece of his nose behind you to alert you that he's mentally as capable as Stephen Hawking attempted to drive over the entire Fokker Blu-ray collection after being Dragon Ball Wish packed to life into the recycle bin on Windows 10. So for a review of this old comedy that relies on its poor comedic timing for cringe comedy by performing a relentless haul of attacks into Gaylord Fokker, I can't recommend this movie. I can't award it a score or anything. All I can display is what I've already shown, like just my general bitter unenjoyment. So peace out guys, and make sure you get Fokkerized. Sorry, video over yet. I'm tearing my way back into this review, so smashed and battered it will resemble my hands after repeatedly grinding the skeleton in Ben Stiller's closet, that for some reason conceals a small box like blue velvet with only the true essence of Owen Wilson's nose hidden inside.
Wow.
Hey, you made it. Wait a minute.
Meet the Fockers. So we return for the exciting part 2 of Gaylord Fokker against Jack Burns, but this time, as you couldn't guess, they travel to Miami to meet the Fockers, who are played by Dustin Hoffman and Barbra Streisand. The first film showcases its humour once again by having Gaylord Fokker deliver a baby with his name written across us to remind us why most people hold this unbridled cynicism towards Hollywood comedy sequels when they so effortlessly are adept at recycling ideas.
Boy, you're my hero. I name a baby for you. Oh, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, I must. It's a Latvian tradition. We'll name the baby...
As established earlier in this video, without sounding like a broken record player being operated by a post-prime Muhammad Ali, the purpose of a sequel should be at the bare minimum to progress the characters beyond the first entry of the film, that is, to different thematic plot beats, pushing the characters in a fresh direction without becoming stale and falling down the stairs. While the first act of the film progresses, nothing aside from a slow blend of monotonous scenes that tell the audience that we're on Jack's bus to meet the Fockers. This act of the film is sadly a symptom of what's to come next. As the root of the problem with this film is the horrendous pacing of the scenes that continue to establish very little of no stakes or sense of urgency compared to Meet the Parents. However, as a film watching experience, I much prefer Meet the Fockers over Meet the Parents. From what I understand, or rather, is a rather common sentiment to stand on the hill, that I imagine is as tall as Owen Wilson's nose before it was greeted by a strong backhand like David Nalbian then.
Nalbandian's backhand has been absolutely superb.
Wow.
20 minutes in and we're finally greeted with Dustin Hoffman's character that plays Gaylord's father, and from this we discover what the film is really about. Robert De Niro's character, Jack Burns. Throughout the entirety of the film, Jack Burns is a quintessential example of the positive character arc written about Lekain in its aforementioned book, Creating Character Arcs, as Jack relentlessly resuscitates the belief of trust can only be maintained in such an authoritative sense that inadvertently blinds him to the propensity of friends, even going to the extent of creating a circle of trust that facilitates his worldview. However, at the end of Meet the Fockers, Jack Burns ends up as a supportive father-in-law who holds trust in Gaylord Fokker, realising the finality of the subplot shown from the videos of Jack discovering Gaylord's strangled 15-year-old son, who turns out to not match the DNA of Fokker whatsoever.
Talk to me, Marty. What's the intel on Operation Living Skeleton?
Fokker's not the kid's father, Jack.
Are you kidding me? I was sure I had that pegged. "34 years spent reading other people and I get it all wrong. My own wife, I don't even know what she's thinking. My daughter keeps secrets from me. Sometimes I think you're the only person I can really talk to, LJ.
This event teaches Jack that the methods are not always foolproof and causes De Niro to support both Focker and Son when they become involved in the police in the film's final act, where he finally, in the words of Dustin Hoffman, becomes fuckerized. Although it has a far more juvenile sense of humour compared to Meet the Parents, I believe it to be the strongest entry I've seen so far. The film does weigh it considerably down and make it hard to be invested in any character aside from Jack, in the vapid smorgasbord of jokes that thematically differ from the first, more cringe comedy, from a more rudimentary, bombastic, slapstick approach. However, I try to keep my head high. It's hard to be ambitious for a third entry in a comedy series, but Jack has progressed his entire character arc and can't be developed unless they completely decide to bastardize his entire character.
So I want to thank the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, but don't wait down. They skipped ahead with my. Thank you for this extraordinary honor. I was very, very moved and gratified when you made the announcement 2 months ago, well before you had a chance to review Little Fockers. Yeah. I saw those. It's okay. We all have our jobs to do.
Fucker.
Dustin Hoffman initially declined to reprise his role as Bernie Focker, being unhappy with the script and the replacement of director Jay Roach with Paul Weitz, so the character was originally killed.
I rescued Dustin Hoffman from Elon Musk's Matrix so I can enjoy the wonders of a Fokker finale.
The premise for Little Fockers is restarting the established formula by grinding it into the remains of Owen Wilson's nose and producing, no hyperbole, the worst film I've ever seen. You can levy so many criticisms at this film. Midway through, I decided to walk away from my computer by no-clipping in the opposite direction like a Skyrim speedrun. Robert De Niro's character is as butchered as you would expect, and aside from the obvious mask of no emotion Planet of the Apes face gone through the gravity chamber of DBZ, his face idly set seems to rest him when perceived himself displeased with a role he's in, which is the full fucking duration of this film. Yeah, mad. Once again, Owen Wilson has to show his deformed Neanderthal skull as he enters a film to snap a child's neck and leaves before the sands of time can deplete from the withered remains of lightning Sphinx. Let's talk about Owen Wilson though. Sorry to disrupt the cadence of the video, but so far this video's flow is like watching Stephen Hawking attempt to cross Owen Wilson's nose. You know, it'll be for the best if I continue like Nas this time. Owen Wilson's nose repairs, my hand returns home, I stand still and he's just standing there. Yeah, it doesn't really work. Full Rewind still ends with his nose fockerized whatever decision I make. Oh god man. I think I'm gonna have to do an even further rewind. Let's go. Owen Wilson was expelled from school after stealing his teacher's geometry textbook. Although he planned to copy the answers in order to ace an upcoming exam, Wilson's plan backfired, and he was sent to military school in New Mexico. And while at military school, Owen Wilson met a fellow student who later introduced him to Wes Anderson. Owen Wilson, though, has no discernible talent that someone could witness in this entire trilogy. He just shows up meandering around in the background before he ushers one of his standard Buzz Lightyear-esque catchphrases in the distance like a Migos ad-lib.
Wow.
Every scene he's in forces your sanity to progressively deteriorate until your brain looks like his nose, and he's just fucking horrible to look at. He should be kept in the Coney Island Freak Show or captured in a Zelda bottle like a fucking fairy. But as a matter of fact, I'd rather be kept in said bottle for the rest of my life, sitting in Robert De Niro's mantelpiece and never watch Meet The Fockers trilogy again. I'd rather be stuck inside a fridge after a nuclear fallout, only to be thrown out a window and collected by a group of wild hoodlums that present me to a factory that converts me into a storage room of pencils. But these pencils are not even used by schools. The eraser will be surgically removed with the utmost delicacy, only to satisfy the void in Owen Wilson's nose. So Little Fockers became so unbearable to watch, the only enjoyment I had with this catastrophe was when I watched it with a friend and dubbed over an entire scene with John Williams' Duel of the Fates. That's the only enjoyment I had though. Maybe that's the best place to leave this review, with the dust. I don't know, final thoughts as a trilogy as a whole I guess. 3.1 out of 10. I'm going back on my word, and that's not an arbitrary score by the way. I'll break it down. Meet the Parents gets a 10, because it gets a score now. Meet the Fockers gets a 5. Little Fockers doesn't deserve a score, and that 0.1 is what is left from the remains of Owen Wilson's nose.